Crimson Randy, known by no other name, from Huntsville, Alabama. He said, I heard you invoke the 2007 season when discussing your season preview for this year. Can that sort of chaos really happen again? Oh, Crimson Randy, absolutely it can. 2007 is the stuff of legend for those of you who are too young to remember or your memory was just wiped clean. But '07 was wild. And Crimson Randy's asking me, can that happen again? Yes, it can. Let me give you the obvious reasons why it could happen. We've got a very compacted top 25. I looked at the JP poll. I looked at the model. The points on a neutral field gap between our number 1 team and our number 25 team, 14 points is the gap. There have been years where we had a 14-point gap between number 1 and number 10, just for comparison's sake. So things are very compacted. But to give you an idea, if you look at the number 9 team and the number 40 team, there's about an 11-point gap between those teams. So you're going to look at some stuff happen this year, and it's going to look like a huge upset, and it's not this year. You're going to look at some point spreads come out for some games, and you're going to think they look really weird because they should be bigger, and they're not, and it's not. You're going to see huge shifts in power ratings. JP poll, for example. Imagine this. Imagine the number 13 team loses by 10 points. If I do nothing more than knock them a point and a quarter, that may drop them from 13 to 25 this year because of how compacted things are. And people will be up in arms about it, and they'll say, well, how did we drop 12 spots, 13 spots, 14 spots? You dropped a point and a quarter. That's what you dropped. It just so happens that everyone's so tightly bunched, that's how far you dropped comparatively. Oregon's got a new quarterback. Georgia's got a new quarterback. Bama does. Texas does. Ohio State, Notre Dame. 11 of the top 16 teams in the odds to win the national title. Timely punch there, Bradley. 11 of the top 16 teams have new quarterbacks they're starting this year. That alone is the real recipe for chaos here, along with the other things. But I want you to be reintroduced to what we call the cattle prod theory on this show. Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. And I want to gather your emotions for a second because this is going to happen. It's coming at us. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You just don't know where it's going to hit. This is Billy Bob Thornton explaining to Bruce Willis in Armageddon, the asteroid's coming. There's nothing we can do to stop it. We're trying to figure out where it's going to hit. Cattle prod theory is in effect this year more so than ever before. Now, what cattle prod theory is the fact that your team's season's going to play out the way it's going to play out. There's nothing you can do to control it. What you can do is look forward to it. And so you start setting expectations and you start thinking things. And you got 8 months to expect things and think things. Now, you could be right on the money, at which point you will not be surprised at all by your team's performance this fall. However, some of you are 20 or 30 degrees off in May. And then June and July and August go by. And you just continue to become further entrenched in opinions that, unbeknownst to you, have no basis in reality. And this happens every year, and it's about to happen to some of you, and I feel bad already, even though I don't know who I'm feeling bad for. The cattle prod will hit your neck. It did Florida State last year in week 1. Nick Saban himself goes on national TV and says, I think that team right there is going to win the ACC. That's some of the best personnel I've seen. They're terrible. They're dead on arrival. You think anybody in Tallahassee, Florida expected that? Of course you didn't. What did it feel like in week 1? You're not even angry. You're beyond angry. You're stunned. You're in disbelief. You have no way to grasp what's happening. It's because you took a cattle prod to your neck. College football is the most beautiful, cruel sport in the world because it's the hardest one to predict, and you will get cattle prodded. Texas, you could have Ohio State gut you up the middle, running the ball, give up 6.5, 7 yards per carry, and lose in Columbus, and you never saw it coming. Oklahoma's offensive line could get caved against Michigan after you built up in your mind that you thought you had rebuilt that unit and you didn't. Penn State's wide receivers, Oregon comes to town, they shut you down. It's just a replay of the Notre Dame game last year, and you realize even after all this portal infusion, we're still no different than we were last year. Bama, what if What if old Tommy C down there, Tommy Castellanos, what if he runs all over you? What if you still have problems defending mobile quarterbacks? You don't expect it. That's why it's the cattle prod theory. What if Notre Dame goes down to Miami and they cannot move the ball at all? And you announce your starting quarterback, but then you got to go back on it, and then it's Kenny Minchey taking the field in the third quarter, and you put 9 points on the board against Miami. What if Miami's secondary melts down and Notre Dame just moves up and down the field on you? What if South Carolina gets gashed on the ground by Virginia Tech in week 1? What if Clemson cannot stop LSU? What if that offensive line for LSU goes in there and handles Clemson after all these questions, and Garrett Nussmeier is moving it up and down the field, and it's like the Louisville game all over again, and you realize, wow, we really were a paper tiger, no pun intended. That's not predictions, because maybe all of that happens, maybe none of that happens, but you know some of it's going to happen because it's cattle prod theory. In any given year, it happens. In this year, to answer Crimson Randy's question, I guarantee you it's going to happen. Whomst is it going to happen to? I apologize in advance.